Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Today we're out in the shop and we're working on this old Craftsman Zero Turn mower. I picked this mower up for a $100 bill. It had dropped compression and needed a little bit of work. The previous owner had gotten it so hot that it dropped the valve seat out of the head. So put a new cylinder head on it, got it running really good, and I've been using it ever since. But recently started having an issue with the left side transaxle. After about 45 minutes of mowing, it would stop pulling. It'd start growling really loud and would slowly lose power, and then it would just stop altogether. So these units that are in this machine aren't serviceable, supposedly, and they do have oil in them. So from what I understood, the only way to change the oil in them is to pull them completely out of the machine and dump all the oil out of the fill plug. And I didn't like that idea, not on a $100 mower, so I decided to make them serviceable. So let me show you what I did. So, after a bit of research, I found that both of these Transaxle units are unserviceable from the factory. A lot of your entry-level zero turns and your hydrostatic mowers use sealed Transaxle units. They don't want you servicing them. So, first up, I decided to check into replacement. And a replacement unit was over $1,000 just for one side Transaxle. And considering I had bought this mower for a $100 bill, it's just not worth it to me. So the next option, which I'm pretty sure was a problem, was the oil. It needed to be serviced. It hadn't been serviced in a long time. This is an old mower and it's been abused. So I looked into just changing the oil in it. And the only way to do that is to drop the transaxle and take the fill plug out and dump all the oil out of the fill plug and fill it back up, put it back in. There's no quick way to do it, and it makes it a real hassle to keep up on maintaining them. So instead, I decided to make them serviceable. Now I've already done this side. As you can see, there's an 1/8 inch pipe plug in the bottom of this case now. And all I did was drill a hole in the bottom of this case. Now, I had seen the parts diagram for this specific transaxle before. I knew there was just a filter in that area. So I just took it slow, drilled a little hole, give me a way to drain all the oil out of this unit. So far, this one's been working great. And after changing oil in it, I'm running 1540 diesel motor oil in it, as everyone suggested to do online. So ever since that, this thing's been operating like new. It's not jerky anymore, no more growling noises, and it doesn't overheat anymore. So I figure I might as well go on and do the same thing to the other side, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. The size of the drill for the 1/8 inch MPT tap is a size R. You can also get away with a 5/16. This is a size R, so that's what I'll be using. And got a little catch container here that fits under there. So let's get at it. Now, you want to take your time drilling this hole. You don't want the bit to catch and go further in than it needs to. So, take it slow, and as soon as you poke through, it'll start leaking. These housings aren't very thick either. And there it goes. And as you can see, the oil coming out of this is just bright yellow, almost like mustard. So I'm gonna let this drain completely. It will fill this jug here. We're gonna let it drain all the way down and make an access hole for the fill plug up top. So I'm up top, I've got the fuel tank pulled off. And this is where the vent tube comes up through the chassis on the mower. This is the vent tube for the Transaxle. The other side's got one here. So the fill plug lands approximately right here. So what I'm going to do is get a hole saw, make an access hole for that fill plug right there. Okay, we got our access drilled, and you can see the fill plug down in there. And I've cleaned it up a little bit with some brake cleaner, and I will come back and touch these edges up here with a die grinder, but for now that'll work. And we can get right down in here to the fill plug. We got our fill plug out right there, and we're still waiting on this to finish draining, but as you can see, the oil coming out of this thing is nasty. Now, while this finishes draining, I am going to go on and start tapping this hole with our 1/8 inch MPT tap. I've got it in a 1/4 inch 8-point socket, which fits perfect. And take your time with this. It doesn't go, you don't have to go very deep with it. You're just giving the plug something to bite onto. Keep in mind there's a filter just above this hole, and I don't really want to run this tap into that filter and cause a bunch of damage to it. It will get into that filter a little bit, but not much. And the oil draining out of this case still is bringing all those little aluminum bits right down that tap. So don't have to worry much about any contaminants doing it this way. You will get your hands a little dirty, but that's life. All the little, every time I turn this, the chunks of aluminum are flowing down the oil. Not sure if you can pick it up or not on this camera. Probably not, but and that is far enough. Here's the oil we'll be filling this unit back up with. It is Kirkland's 1540 diesel oil. It's a CK4 SN rated 1540 motor oil. It's nothing special, it's cheap, and it works great for this application. And once these plugs are put in it, this oil can be changed easily. So at the first sign of any noise these units start making or anything like that, they can be serviced mid-season, or they can be serviced every time you change your engine oil, which typically I like to do right at the beginning or right at the end of the season. So anyways, I've got a hand pump set up on that gallon jug of 1540. Got the tube ran down into the fill plug. So I'm gonna go on and pump a little bit of clean oil into this to help flush out anything that may be left in the bottom of this case. And then I'll get that plug put in there and fill it back up. Just to show a difference in the oil coming out of this thing versus the clean oil on top versus that nastiness underneath. Why they don't make all these things serviceable is beyond me. But yeah, servicing these units will get you a lot more life out of your lawnmower. Now that our oil has finally finished draining out, we can go on and get our pipe plug threaded in there with a little bit of thread sealant on it. A little bit of thread sealant on the threads of our plug. And we will start this plug by hand. And then lightly snug it up with a little wrench. This doesn't have to be super tight. These are aluminum threads, and this casing is not very thick, so it doesn't have to be bottomed out either, because these are tapered threads. And this will not be under any pressure, so that will be fine just like that. Now we're ready to fill this drive unit back up. Typically, what I do, don't know if it's right or wrong, but it works for me. I will fill it completely full and until it runs out of the fill plug. And yeah, it may be over full, but the first time it's ran and that drive gets hot, it'll push a little bit of excess out of the breather, and then it will be where it needs to be. So it works for me, and I haven't had any issue out of it. So that's what I'm going to do. And not sure if you can see that down in there, but it is full to the top of the case. Now all that's left to do is put the fill plug back in, remount the fuel tank, and run this a little bit. Let these transaxles work a little bit, make sure we don't have any issues. They probably will make a little bit of noise at first because they're dry, but once the system gets primed, gets all the air out of it, it should be good to go. So let's see what we got. Well, everything seems to be working as it should. No more jerkiness, no more odd noises or growls coming from the units. So I think that's going to take care of it. Now, these units are serviceable. So at the beginning of every season, when I change the oil in this machine and grease everything on it, I'll also go on and pull those drain plugs and service both those transaxles. And that should give us many more years of service out of this unit instead of having to throw it away. So instead of throwing $1,000 in parts at this machine, what, half hour worth of work, and we've got it running like new again. So don't always have to throw away these units when they start acting up. But anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.